Now, if you have the dash off on the top like this is a good time to access your clock if you need to do anything with the clock to replace it or whatnot. Now, to get the clock out, it's not enough just to have the dashboard off because this is still stuck in here. But you'll see underneath, right there, is one Phillips head screw coming in from the bottom. Take this Phillips head screw out and you'll be able to remove the clock. With that Phillips head screw removed, you can either grab it by the tab up here, you just slide it up and back out, and then you can disconnect the connectors on the back. One connector is for the light bulb that goes into the clock in the back, and the other one is for the power. Since I've taken the dashboard out, I figured it was a good opportunity. I pulled out the pin that I told you in my previous video had fallen out several years ago. So maybe now I can see if I can reattach the pin, if it's able to be fixed or not. So I'm just going to take a very small flat blade screwdriver and get my tabs here bent back enough to pry off the face of the clock. Started that process here just to work underneath and then pull that forward. And I'll do the same thing on this other side. It's just enough to free the clock like that. And I can just take off the face, set that to the side. Now to get the clock off itself, I'm going to have to actually bend those tabs back a little bit to free that clock mechanism here. Okay. Wow. There's the spring that popped off probably 25 years ago. And that's what caused this pin to fall out on the floor one day when I was driving the car. So fortunately, like I showed in my previous video on the clock, I do have a clock from the junkyard for a different car that has the working set mechanism in it. So I'll take this one apart to compare against my clock and see if there's any other parts that are broken or if I just need to reattach the set mechanism with the spring. Okay, so pried off the face of the junkyard clock, same as the clock in the car now. We'll take a look here on the back side at what parts we have. And I can see already these are from different model years because the clock circuitry itself is a bit different. Can also tell already that the set mechanism is different. So there's a short spring here on the older clock, or the other clock, and I have one gear here and another gear at the top. Those two gears looks like they come down and they engage with this gray gear and this gray gear to set the clock. I pull down like so, that will let me set the clock. On the clock here from my Caprice, there's only one of those gears, and it looks like I'm missing this upper gear. Unfortunately, it looks like we might be out of luck here today. This gear pin is attached. It looks like there's some E-clamp or something on here that's holding that in place, because this does not want to budge off. And since this older handle's a bit rusty, I'm not going to try to remove this just to repair this on my clock here. So basically I've been able to fish the spring through, but there's nothing to hold this pin back up in place. So basically, I think years ago that gear that would have gone right here just cracked and broke off or something, and that's what allowed this to fall out. I see no evidence of the gear anymore. So for now, I'll just leave this out. I'll put the clock back together, and maybe someday I'll see if I can find another part for this from the 85. So I'll pull this pin back out, take the spring with it. I'll put these back in the bag for another day. Reversing this, I'll put the clock back in with the bottom tabs. Make sure that connector's in the back. Push that in like that. And then we'll do the same thing with the front face. I'll clip that on from the bottom and push it in over the top like that. So just needle nose or regular pliers, push down and bend, just like that. And that'll hold it in place like that, so that won't come off. All right, so with that back together, we'll put this back into the car. To reattach the clock, basically came in, pushed the light bulb attachment back in and rotated it about a quarter turn and reconnected the connector on the back. Make sure that the first knob goes into that slot and the tab goes into the other slot, and then just turn it forward and slid down into the channel where the clock goes, and then underneath we'll reattach that Phillips head screw. All right, let's get this dashboard set back in place. Just carefully lift it up and over. I'm going to put the passenger side in and down first. Slide that in until it goes over the top. And then do the same thing on the driver's side. You'll feel it sit right on top of that notch. And push that in place. Now, you're going to have two screws here on the left for the defrost panel and two screws on the right for that defrost panel. We'll put those in now. Grab them with a pair of tweezers to line them up over the hole so you don't accidentally drop them. You're also going to have one Phillips head screw for the side on the passenger side, one Phillips head screw for the driver's side. Just make sure that hits that clip underneath. Okay, inside the car, underneath the dash, you're going to have 6 Phillips screws. One here, third one here. You'll have 4 and 5 here in the middle above the clock. Then you're going to skip this area where your instrument cluster will go, and you'll have your 6th screw up over here. So we'll put those in now. Okay, now with all these screws in, we'll go back and we'll tighten them down. For this screw, just be careful to also make sure that you catch the tab that comes through. There's a metal tab behind here that holds the clock in place so it doesn't move or rattle. Once all your screws are tightened, I think the last thing you can do is just gently bend in and clip in your speaker grill covers, like so. Same thing on the passenger side.